We got to break Cereba up. Cereba is a cartel.
We have to own our grid because we paid for it. You had it too long. That's number one. We need to control the purchasing of fuel because we pay for it. We should be in charge of buying it. The fuel companies, you better buckle up too. Jackson Point pipeline have to be reverted back to the ownership of the country. Oh, Mario, you can't tell them how to operate their business. Well, yes, we can. Having this idea that you're going to impose what's best because of what the law tells you can do will cause an uprising in this country that you've never seen before. My children are going to be saddled with the debt of a billionaire so that he can have his name printed on everything we got around here. Because let me tell you something, this is Dart Island. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Word of Mouth. Today is Wednesday. I'm sorry we weren't able to broadcast live on Monday. Obviously, we were hoping to get back in the studio Monday, but we had a few things that we had to sort out. Actually, the truth is I wasn't feeling well, so I was unable to come in. But yeah, there's a couple of things that I just want to speak about and bring everybody up to speed on. There are a lot of things that we need to focus on. Obviously, I mean, we can't talk about cost of living enough because it's one of the fundamental issues that we face and that we have been facing for a very long time. So we just need to constantly have the conversation, try to continue the open dialogue and try to get our government officials to see things likewise. Now, I do know, I actually called into the radio came on this morning where the deputy premier, who's the acting premier, and Kenneth Bryan, the Minister for Tourism, and then they were joined later on by J.E. Banks, Minister for Agriculture and Planning. So that show is actually still going on right now. I was listening to it on the drive-in. So, and I actually called in and just shared a few sentiments. They were talking about the East-West Arteria extension, the importance of it. They were talking about the utilities and trying to reduce the cost per kilowatt hour and all these different things. Truthfully, I think that the approach to reducing the cost of utilities, I mean, of our electricity is fuel. Yeah, we can also negotiate with the company in terms of what the kilowatt hour should be, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be a cost, because if you move it from one item of your electricity bills obligated units, which is facility charge, renewable energy charge, fuel factor, duties, kilowatt, and all these things, you'll realize that what it'll do is it'll reduce one thing and increase the next. So I don't think robbing Peter to pay Paul is the answer. I mean, in fact, not that I don't think, I know that it isn't the answer. We need to realistically have a conversation about the fuel. I'm telling you, I feel like I just beating the same old drum over and over again. I mean, I don't care how much paperwork you read or how much information you read. The bottom line is that there is cheaper petroleum to be bought. We just don't have the mechanisms to ensure that we're getting the best price points. This is my personal assessment based on all the things that I know. So another thing that we don't really pay close attention to is the special interest groups that benefits from these situations that is costing everybody in the Cayman Islands. So how do we go about fixing these issues, getting these things done and whatnot? And it's simple. It's a matter of actually doing something that a lot of people won't like. I don't know how often I have to talk about in depth the cost of fuel, the effects, the impacts, some of the solutions, how we can reduce it. I was listening to the acting premier, the deputy premier, Mr. Christopher Saunders, who is on Radio Cayman as we speak right now. And he was speaking about the East-West Arteria, as I said. The thing is that he made a very interesting point where you have a group of people who are concerned about the road and the impacts it have on the environment and different things. The problem is that there's one factor in this whole scenario that we've been missing. One factor. There is a 32.5-foot road on the corner of Tall Tree, which is on the Savannah Junction by the Savannah gas station, which goes down to Pedro, and there's a little small, awkwardly configured roundabout intersection there that has always been confusing. And then there's a road that's on that corner by the Savannah Church, on the corner of Tall Tree, across from Country Corner, next to Domino's Pizza. Now, I've just listed everything in that area so people can have a great idea of where I'm talking about. When you get right there, that's a 40-foot wide area with which you got to have a lane on one side with shoulder and a lane on the other side with shoulder, which is very little. That is the connecting road artery to the Eastern Districts. Now listen to me very closely. Bordentown, which spans from Frank Sound Road all the way to Spots Newlands, is the Bordentown district, the largest district on the island and the fastest growing district on the island for the past 25 years. And when I say those words, that means that the amount of residents that has taken up residency in that area over the past 25 years has quadrupled. Hence the reason why we see the massive traffic flow in the mornings and evenings in those areas. So if we're going to continue to believe that that's a sufficient route, there's a lot of social injustices that will happen because of it. Because what happens if there's an emergency on the north side of that junction going east, and someone had a bad accident on that corner? There's no other alternative road to get to Georgetown. None at all. So we are in a very compromised position from a traffic flow standpoint. We need to put in the east. We need to finish the East-West Arteria. Now, there's a lot of other things now that I'm a bit concerned about is the property owners and the recent property owners. So I was listening to the Deputy Premier, Mr. Christopher Saunders. He said something very interesting, and I hope people were listening. And the only reason is because I think we all have had this conversation before. I think I think the majority of us kind of share those sentiments, where he was just encouraging people who own land in those areas that would be potentially open up to this roadway, this highway, which means the increase of value of their property would essentially happen once the road goes in, to just hold on to their land a little longer and don't sell it to the big developers who has the financial capability to purchase it all and foresee what's happening. Now, if you look at some politicians who have since retired or call themselves retired, if you look at a couple of them who are directly complicit in the behavior of purchasing land along that corridor for a road that was gazetted, you all have heard me said on many occasions, let's follow the money. So all we got to really do is follow who purchased land in that gazetted area during the time period or within the time period it was being gazetted. I mean, it's the highest level of corruption, in my opinion. Just go to the Lands and Survey and look it up. And then we can find those people and we should put them in jail. We should charge them. There shouldn't be no statute of limitation on when a person should be charged for abusing their public office. That's just my opinion. Just a reminder, we have our YouTube channel up and running. We'll post a link on our page on this thing here shortly. And for those people who don't have Facebook, you can share it with your friends and they can watch it on YouTube live. So yeah, the conversation this morning on Radio Cayman was super interesting. And and I thought that it was yeah, it was something that I figured more or less would become a topic of substance with these politicians, only because it is it's a fact. So moving the some of the commerce and some of the heavy industrial areas into those areas is a great idea, and it's something that I've talked about for many years, and we should be seriously focused on that. The other thing that was very interesting, again, you know, we all wonder why the cost of construction and the cost of building and all these things have come up to the point where it's just unbearable. I mean, come on, man, we got to be very, very realistic with how we view these things. Um, I heard the minister speak about the possibilities of shopping for aggregate in the neighboring island of Jamaica. And again, this is something that I've been actively working on. I own a partial lease of a quarry in Jamaica for the past 10 years. I was trying to bring aggregate to Cayman from the heavy industrial aggregate for fill and swamp land right back down to a refined product that was processed and crushed, and and it was such a huge fight because of the special interest groups here who benefit from digging holes here in the Cayman Islands and these special interest quarries, and we got to stop it. We got to stop digging holes in the island. We could get all of the building material we need right from Jamaica, neighboring countries. We getting it from different countries. We getting material from there right now. And what we decide to do, let's go dig a hole in the bluff. So we'd be blasting the bluff and digging a big old hole in the bluff, taking all that material too. This is just um, how unproactive we are. We just don't think about the things that need to be done. All of our planning is 5 to 10 years, or 1 to 4 years, every election term, I should say. And by the time we turn around, 10 years is gone and we've exhausted that and we have to plan again. No planning when it comes to infrastructure development and build out to this country should be 50 years, less than 50 years to 100 years. But that's just my opinion. Now we have a fast growing population of the needy people. If NAU has an increased membership consistently over the past 10, 15, 20 years, then that means that we have an increase of failure of politicians over the past 15 years. So, I mean, it goes hand in hand. You can't have an institution funded by government, which is our welfare. It's a welfare office. We just don't call it welfare office simply because it's a more demeaning term. And we just don't call it that. We call it NAU, Needs Assessment Unit. No, it's welfare. It's Section 8. That's what it is. So if you have a fleeting population of indigenous people, and whatever you want to term indigenous, if you have a fleeting membership of that in terms of meaning a fleeting population, which means we're declining, not increasing, but yet you have a steady growth at the needs assessment unit, NAU, that tells you that something is fundamentally wrong with what's happening in the Cayman Islands in terms of creating a sustainable environment for all its people. The thing is that we put more emphasis on permanent residency and status grants and rights to work without permit and all these things than we have ever done for the continuity sustainability for Caymanians. We've never really focused in on how do we integrate these things. I heard the deputy premier said that we have culturally engineered a society. No. That term don't fit because it wasn't culturally engineered. Because if it was engineered, then it would have been done properly. I guess you got bad ingenuity and good ingenuity, or maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. But what I will say is this: is that if we're gonna have a system of reality that persons can come from anywhere in the world, come to Cayman and live a higher standard of life from where they're from. In some cases, it don't take much, but in other cases, it's just the same. Then we must have had a system that also was inclusive of the local brand. But it doesn't seem to be the problem. You realize that every 90% of the mom and pop shops that open up around here is culturally influenced from a different jurisdiction, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with diversity. The problem is that how we go about the ownership, how we go about the distribution of the wealth from that. That's where we go wrong. So when it goes back to the aggregate companies and the people who are blasting holes in our country to supply, they're raising the price of material. Hence the reason why the cost of construction has quadrupled. Not only that we allowed the some of the hardware stores to just run roughshod over Cayman. Do you all remember? You all remember after Hurricane Ivan? For all of you who've been here that long and for people who lived through it, let me tell you something. After Hurricane Ivan, the government put an exemption on duties on building materials and furniture. But these hardware stores and these places never once gave us. They never passed our savings on. They never pass it on. Why you think you can see a certain hardware store buying up all this property and building all these big buildings? You know why? It came off of the reconstruction and the build out after Hurricane Ivan. The billions of dollars that was spent rebuilding this country went into the pockets of those people simply because they weren't obligated to pass on the duty concession that they got because of the Hurricane Ivan issue. Nobody can tell me, but nobody don't want to have that conversation. No one wants to have that conversation. We so happy with the small special interest groups of people to just constantly reap the benefits on the very backs of the people who can no longer sustain it anymore. The poor people can't sustain it. And you know what they're doing now? Now that they realize that the local poor people can't afford to sustain this anymore, what are they doing? They're re-gentrifying the whole island. Okay? They are now separating the classes and the people. Trust me when I tell you, they're building a whole new Cayman for a whole new set of individuals with a certain level of wealth who can afford to live in those areas. You realize that a lot of the people who can afford land, I mean, even if you can afford $35,000, $40,000 for a piece of land, you got to buy it in the Eastern Districts. That's a fact. Ain't no piece of land anywhere in Georgetown costs $30,000 or $35,000. You hear what I tell you? Unless it decides that it's notepad. Because I can assure you that the system has morphed itself into this to this monster that is gobbling up every single average person in this country. I'm sorry to say it, but it's the truth. And it's self-inflicted, I can tell you. It is self-inflicted. But how do we remove ourselves from this spiral downfall that we're getting into? So, of course, if you try to say, okay, as a government, we want to encourage bringing in aggregate from, say, Jamaica. Let's use that as a hypothetical because they got one of the largest resources in the region, and they are our neighboring island. We do a lot of business with Jamaica, and there's a lot of connection to Jamaica. So I would say that would be the most ideal island for us to establish this bridge link and get the material. And they got unlimited enough to supply us with another 200 years if we needed it. The thing is this, is that you're going to piss off one or two core owners, but who cares? Listen to me good. The special interest group that wants to keep things the way they are, we got to break that. We have to break that. And we got to put a moratorium down on quarrying in this country. I'm sorry. We got to stop quarrying this island because this is not a big island. The resources are something that we need to preserve because it's limited. We got to stop blasting holes in this island, I'm telling you. And we don't need to start it 10 years. We should have started it in 1999. I'm telling you, we should have started it 22 years ago. We should have stopped mining our country, build a better relationship with Jamaica, Mexico, Cuba, and get our material. And we can get it for a lot less. That's what we should have been doing. That's what we should do now. We can reduce right now, allegedly, there is a huge issue where they can't keep up supply and demand for the short rock and the heavy material for filling in the swampy areas. Hence the reason why government's struggling on finishing all of some of the big major road projects that they had on the books. So yeah, we need to shop out that portion of it, and we need to make sure that we we continue to build relationships with our neighboring islands so that we can have the sustainability that is needed here on our island. You know, I listened to the ministers this morning, and as I said, I called in to say, look, you know, there's a lot of things that we may want. That's different from the things that we need. Okay, you may want to go fishing, but you need to eat. You understand? You may want to buy a pair of $1,000 shoes, right? But you need to eat. At the end of the day, it boils down that you can't avoid eating. That's a key ingredient of life. In fact, that is one of the most important ingredients of life. If you don't eat, you die. But again, how do we get to a point where we understand this fully, comprehend it, and embrace it so that every action we take reflects that? So I just ask where we can just stay focused on the issues, we can pay attention to our surroundings, understand what's happening. So if we can establish two things, a great relationship for mining and getting all of the building aggregate that we need here on island at a reduced cost, that works in the best interest of the consumer. That brings down the cost of construction. So all of this fluff talk that we got about, oh, young Caymanians need to get in a house, I don't care whether they get in a house or not. It's what they'll be able to sustain and be able to afford on the long run. Because it doesn't make sense to set people up for failure. If you give a Caymanian a piece of property tomorrow morning for free, which is some of the information that I kind of gathered from the conversation that Mr. Saunders and them were talking about. They're buying up land in the eastern districts. They're going to subdivide them, and they're buying it with crown. Anyway, it's going to be for the local people. But if even if you gave a young Caymanian a piece of property right now, and you gave them deposit for a mortgage, and they got the mortgage and they built it, but yet that individual is unable to maintain a mortgage through its lifetime of 20 to 25, 30 years, whatever long it is, and they fall victim to foreclosure, then because the system has not been, changed in any way to allow them to be able to cover their own bills, because all of these social programs is going to run this country bankrupt. Go look at any other sovereign nation in the world and look at their social programs. And when you see that they struggle from an economic standpoint, it's because they got too many social programs. Politicians trying to appease their voters by directly paying some things that, like for us, they paying like bills and stipends and whatever the case is. Listen, I don't want no politician out there. Politicians are not there to help people individually. A politician's job is not to help people, not to go pay their light bill and buy them groceries. You do it when there's a situation at hand, yes, but that's not their job. Their job is to fix the system so that people can afford to pay their own bills. So if you focus in your entire term of just doing handouts, all you're doing is compounding the problem, kicking the can down the road. That's my favorite term now. And you're not really fixing the problem. You're not addressing the issue. And that's the problem that I have. So whereas I believe that, the politicians have an obligation. Now, whether they fulfill that obligation, that's up to us. We have to hold them accountable. Another person called in on the radio show while I was on. Johan Moxham called in. He had a very good point. And he said that, until we change the system that allows the civil servants, who is the unelected arm of government, until we can hold them accountable on the highest level, you really won't see any real movement, because a lot of ministers are held hostage to their ministries in terms of how well their ministries work. So his question really is how do you fix that? How do we hold them accountable that they produce the highest level? Because you can't have this world-class civil service system, and then as he mentioned, and the end product is doesn't reflect. So I thought that was a very, very interesting question, a very good question. So, and I just re-emphasize it here because I think that it should be bleeding into the minds of people to understand that there's a two-headed government system. You got the elected officials who form the government, then you have the independents, and then you have the unelected officials who are the civil servants, chief officers, and the people within. They all are held accountable to the deputy governor, Franz Manderson. He need to be the one to crack the whip. So I just believe that, these are the things that we need to focus on. Obviously, it is important that we focus on these things. But again, we need to keep the dialogue open. We need to keep it going. When we look at a lot of the initiatives that are taking place for the first-time Caymanian ownership, mortgage funds, and different things, CIDB was putting funds available for low interest rate loans for people to get homes. These are all great initiatives. But if we don't fix the system that the long-term effects have, then we're really and truly not even addressing the problem. We're just setting people up for failure. But again, it sounds good from a political standpoint because some people need to be reelected. But how do we change the system? I guess we got to have some sort of constitutional reform. And one caller called in today, and it was very interesting. It was a very interesting conversation. And quote unquote, he said he deals with planning on a weekly basis, and planning is ridiculous and it has to be changed. And he said it need to change before somebody get hurt. And then he hung up the phone. So I found that interesting because I'm just glad. And when I say glad, not that he said it, I'm just happy that it was said on a platform where the necessary ears were listening so that they can have a true understanding of what's really manifesting within our society. Because if you know the caller and you know his background, that's not typically something he says. So something has changed dramatically for him to even utter those words publicly. So it just tells you that there have been a huge paradigm shift, and we need to fix this issue. And if we don't have the silver bullet or the magic wand, we at least need to start addressing it, because it's just gonna get worse. I don't know. Now, I know that there are a lot of things that are happening in the Georgetown area with this whole beautifying, revitalizing Georgetown. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just make this very clear. Let me make this abundantly clear. They think planting coconut trees and putting trees down the middle of a road that we needed is revitalizing Georgetown. Let me ask everybody that is listening to this show. Them closing down Cardinal Avenue and putting trees and mediums and pavers and all this foolishness in the middle of the road and stop traffic from going through, that benefits who? Can somebody tell me? The tourism experience? Listen, we never had a problem with cruise ship passenger numbers prior to. We didn't. You understand? Cruise ship passengers are not overnight passengers. So if we're revitalizing Georgetown, we should be looking towards revitalizing it to cater to the overnight tourism, to the people who come and stay in the hotels and rent the houses and the condos. If we're going to revitalize Georgetown, we need to put more night activity that has a more of a list of options for people to come and enjoy. But you're revitalizing Georgetown by planting coconut trees along Harbor Drive, or Seaman's Drive, my apologies, along Seaman Drive. And then you close off Cardinal Avenue to put trees down the middle of the road and pavers. How in the world is that revitalizing Georgetown? And for who? And for what reason? At what cost? You all understand that it's taking them almost a whole year to plant trees and put pavers down Cardinal Avenue? I don't understand. Again, but that's at the civil service level. We're going to pedestrianize roads in Georgetown to appease and accommodate who? You all understand that you see the major traffic congestion due to one single road that is stopped for whatever reason. And yet we voluntarily closing a road permanently so people can come off a cruise ship and walk up and down stores. Now, I wonder if any of those storefront owners in there even knew that this is what they were doing. Probably, I don't know. They're not going to get any more foot traffic than they already get. Cars never created a hindrance for people going down that road to go to any of those stores. Never. Ah, boy. It's a big joke time. What a mess. Just checking the comments right quick to see what's going on. Yeah. But again, if we don't keep ourselves aware with the surroundings and the things that are happening within our islands, we're going to constantly see these sort of initiatives take center stage and priority. We can have all the conversations in the world. When you're talking about maintaining a free lunch program in our schools, listen, ladies and gentlemen, believe me when I tell you, nothing annoys me more than when we have to glorify a social program simply because we have failed. We have failed in so many areas on creating a sustainable environment for everybody that we think that social programs is our magic bullet or something that is going to magically fix the problem. It's not going to fix the problem. It's just going to create more issues. So every time we look at the growth at Need Assessment Unit, NAU, our welfare system, we need to take a stronger look at the system in which manages the country's resources, because they're not being properly managed and the resources are not being properly allocated and distributed. Hence the reason why we find so many people at Needs Assessment Unit. The membership shouldn't be growing, it should be declining. If a government is actively and effectively working at creating a sustainable environment for its people, then NAU shouldn't be growing, it should be reducing. Yeah, we should see the receding tides, but no, nothing over there, it's increasing. It's like the global warming issue, where the tides are rising. NAU, our Section 8, our welfare system, they gotta stop calling it NAU and call it what it is. The Cayman Islands welfare system. Imagine that. Fifth largest financial center in the world. One of the most glorious tourist destinations in the Western Caribbean. But yet, we got charities feeding their children. We got social programs running our country. It's an embarrassment. It is a complete embarrassment. And it's very contradictory to what we portray we are on the international market. We are a professional banana republic, is all my opinion is. You understand me? Our healthcare system, in every aspect, we're looking at things trying to increase, but nobody paying attention to what the cost of healthcare is. We look at the banking system. Interest rates has gone up. Everything has gone up. Inflation is killing this country's ability to be sustainable. But yet, all we can talk about is social programs and what we want to do and what we don't want to do. Who eligible and who not eligible. I don't subscribe to any of that. I really don't. Social programs are not gonna fix the problem. It's just gonna increase and compound it more. Now, do you need social programs temporarily? Yes, you do in some cases, but in the most desperate of situations. But you don't plaster the country with social programs just because you get that immediate effect, which means you get that immediate popularity and also then translate into maybe a vote. And I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. We just gotta do what we gotta do and move on. You all have heard me say it on many occasions that we need some smart out of the box thinkers and doers, not smart out of the box thinkers only. We need doers too. We need the people who can actually do it. And we see now where there is they dig in the big basement area over on Gorin Avenue for the boutique hotel that they're building out there. And I just want to send out a friendly reminder. I just want to send a friendly reminder out to one of the developers overnight developers who dreamt it up, Mr. Frank Schilling, who posed the question that we need to start the conversation about 20-story buildings in Georgetown. You know, don't let this hotel be some sort of encouragement for you to think that you're gonna build 20-story buildings in Georgetown, because let me just tell you right now, that conversation has been started and completed. You're not building no 20-story buildings, not you, in our country. That's not going to happen. Mark my words today, the 17th day of August, 2022. Save yourself a lot of time, effort, money, and stress and anxiety. You get your approval in the BRAC, go over there. Go on over there. Let you how deal with the BRACers. But at the end of the day, we have to stand up for what we believe is right. And we're not trying to create any hindrance for progression or progress. We're not. Everything must be sustainable. Everything must be inclusive. And we need to make sure that our harvest of people who have the ability to contribute are contributors to anything that's happening in this country, along with everybody else who come here. The problem is that, until we have that balance that is needed for everybody to contribute in their own area, in their own way, and their contribution yields enough for them to sustain themselves, like pay their bills, buy food, pay their mortgage, and all these things, then we haven't done our job. Getting up and talking about things that you're going to do to band-aid a growing problem, that's not the solution. That's a social program just waiting to go bankrupt and along with the country. So let's see what some of the comments saying. Jonathan Powell, what's on the heavy frying pan today? What's on the heavy frying pan today? There's a lot of stuff on the frying pan today, my boy. I just find it interesting that we willingly, with premeditated foresight to avoid the very serious issues that are causing the direct deterioration of the sustainability of everybody that comes to this country. Listen, there is a balance that we need. There's a balance that we need to focus on. All persons that are in the Cayman Islands are contributing in some way. So we need to figure out how to balance that everybody is sustainable. I figured that this consensus that they just did, or the census that they just did, I don't know, maybe I said that wrong, would have given them the data that they needed in order to analyze. And I think that it has. And I think that's why they're making informed decisions now as opposed to uninformed decisions. So I'm sure that they see the labor scale, the balance of it, or the imbalance of it, whichever. Now it's time for them to put in a national plan to say, okay, we have X amount of people in this industry, this industry, this industry. This is the revenue, this is that, this is the cost of living. And that's how you figure out how to try to best create a balance for all participants to make their contributions, which would be enough for them to sustain. Now, the government job is to ensure that whatever strategic policy they put in place is applied into a system that works. Because you can write the best strategic policy in the world, but if the system doesn't work in conjunction with that, it'll fail. It will fail. So that's why I believe that the census was a very important exercise, and now we can realistically, hopefully, these guys can do it. A lot of them are numbers people, to try to figure out how to create some sort of balance. But as I said to the deputy premier, yesterday evening when he and I spoke. I said to him, I said, Chris, listen, I said, your job and no elected official job is to help people pay their light, to help to pay people light bill or to buy them groceries. That's not your job. That's not your job. Your job is to fix the system, help the system, fix the system so people can help themselves. So the number of people that are required your direct assistance is limited, not eliminated, but limited. Any of you numbers should be reducing, not increasing. If it's increasing, we got a problem. Something not happening that's right. We're doing something wrong. So let us be very clear on that, because people are not understanding the seriousness of that all. Yeah. But again, that's what we need to focus on. Sorry, just answering some messages that came in on my phone. What else? One other thing I just want to bring everybody up to speed on in terms of what we're going to be doing with or what I have been trying to do for God knows how long. Two things. One, I have utilized the contacts that I've had for years in Jamaica to try to establish a connection between our local government arm and to bring in, to try to get aggregate to assist with some of the heavy loads of rock that we're going to need to fill some of the swamp areas from Jamaica. And we can get it for a whole lot less. We working out the shipping cost now, which is probably the highest portion of the entire endeavor. And then also I'm working on a fuel tank a fuel storage farm in Jamaica, right on one of the coastal lane areas. And we're pretty far down the road in terms of negotiations and getting it all done. Just a few things that need to be completed. And once we get the initial memorandum of understanding in place, I think we'll be able to engage on breaking ground. We have and I'm speaking a little bit. I speak because I think it's important that the general public here knows exactly what it is I'm trying to do, so that they understand the benefits of it. Right. The last time I tried to do something similar to this, people just weren't able to comprehend the depth of what I was trying to do. So yeah, we have a shovel-ready location in Jamaica on the coastal line area next to a port, and we're getting ready to build a huge tank farm, storage farm for fuel, so that we can have the ability to feed stock out of that for our utility company. Now, we haven't talked to the utility company yet. We haven't talked to anybody yet. We want to put everything in place so that when we do engage, we'll be able to deliver upon whatever agreement we make, if there is one ever to be made. That's why I've always been speaking in at great lengths about it's a direct pass-through cost responsibility for the consumer to buy fuel, to pay for fuel. Then why shouldn't we have a say in where we buy it from? I mean, come on, it's just logical. It just makes sense. But of course, the special interest group who benefit from that industry is going to do everything in their power to make sure that the civil servants who run these portfolios don't make no move. But I can tell you this, they better make a move. Otherwise, this country will make a move, and we'll all make a move. We got to make sure that we stand firm. We can't let the special interest groups continue to run the Cayman ship aground. You understand? It wouldn't be bad if they were running us aground. They're running us to the bottom of the ocean. We're sinking. At least aground, you can still see the sun. But they got us going downward. Okay? So we got to fight. And we got to fight hard. So once we put this agreement in place, and this is a solidified deal, then the negotiations need to start with the utility company. And when I say the negotiations, if it was left up to Mario, would be very simple. Hey, you know what? Unless you paying for some of this fuel, you ain't got no say in where you buy it from. We'll deliver it to you. We'll make sure that you got the right quality and enough for as long as you need it, but you no longer have the ability to buy it. So you and your little special interest group people won't be benefiting from it no more. Hence the reason why we're paying top dollar. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be very clear, 45 million gallons of diesel a year carries a lot of dollars and cents behind it. So there's a lot of people benefiting from that who are only interested in continuing to benefit from that. Now remember this. Let's be very clear on this. And I'm going to look you straight in the face. The 45 million gallons that they burn down there is bought and paid for by me and you. That's right. So under no circumstances should we allow this special interest group to continue to run roughshod on the backs of us, the paying consumer. It's time that we engage in a conversation. But again, I want to make sure that we put these facilities in place so that we have a strong argument to say, look, today is the day that you will not tell us what you paid for fuel. We will tell you what fuel costs because we paying for it. Or you can keep your fuel factor on your bill and you can collect it, but it gotta go to us because it's not yours. So that's 70 cents or 75 cents for a pump fuel and that 25 cents for utility fuel. We then have control. So we don't need to know what your invoice cost was because we control it. We need back our grid, that distribution grid that they pump in. So if the government really wanted to negotiate lowering the kilowatt hour rate, the grid is where you start. You start with negotiating with the grid. Because if government take ownership of the grid and it becomes a sovereignty, which is the people's owned, then we can entertain alternative energy companies, which means they will reduce their costs, which means that their fat shareholders, yeah, I ain't talking about you all here locally that bought on those shares because of the dad or work there. I ain't talking about them. I talking about the shares that Fortis is backing away in container loads. That's what I'm talking about. And by the way, why in the world we haven't taken the pension money and bought Fortis and owns the UC? Tell me why we haven't done that. If it's profitable for them, why it can't be profitable for us? If it makes sense for them economically and business-wise, why it can't be the same for us? We got $3 trillion, 3 billion or trillion, whatever it is, dollars. I think it's billion, my mistake. $3 billion in pensions, but yet all that money is in overseas investment vehicles. Not one of those dollars are local. We do everything in our world to encourage inward bound investment when we take every dollar we got from pensions and send it outward bound. How hypocritical that is. Water company is a publicly traded company, buy them. CUC, publicly traded company, buy it. Buy it. Digicel, Flow, buy them up. Let the pensioners own it. Insurance companies, buy them too. Tell you, we got to get together, start our own private small scale oil refinery. Yeah, I tried that. Well, I didn't try it in Venezuela. The thing is that we can take our pension money, Jonathan, we can take our pension money, we can buy a refinery, we can operate it right in Jamaica or in Venezuela, wherever. But the system of what's happening now doesn't want that because there are too many special interest groups benefiting from the system that is currently riding the local sustainability through the ground. The people, the special interest groups that is benefiting the most here are those that are riding the sustainability through the ground, killing us. You hear what I tell you? This is the longest baptism I've ever seen in my life. You're absolutely right. People don't correlate that very often. When you see that your light bill $900 and your rent 400, all I'm saying is, man, we got a problem. We got a problem. We have a huge problem in these three islands, man. We got to fix them. We got to fix them. It's not sustainable what's happening here. All you hear is most people, oh, work permit this and work permit holders and this and that. Listen, 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 listen. That's not really our problem. Our problem is the system. The system. We're gonna need work permit holders. We don't have a large enough harvest to do all the things that we've created. So get that out on the head. Put that aside. What we need is a balance, a sustainable balance on how this works. We have to put a moratorium on, not put a moratorium, we need to stop quarries from digging holes in our country. That's number one. Let's bring the aggregate from other countries that we can get it cheaper, reduce the cost of construction. Boom, boom. Then we need to make sure that we take control of purchasing of the fuel that goes to our utility company. That brings down the cost of living too. Then we need to make sure that the supermarkets and all these people who are just doing whatever they please, that we have some sort of eyes on them. Off-reg, where he is, ring the bell. Somebody, can somebody ring off-reg bell? Ring the bell. You guys need to show up. I can't understand for the life of me why we consistently go down. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. There is a burning building. Continue that way. If you're not got a bucket of water or an extinguisher, don't go that way. Go the opposite way. We're not going to be able to deal with any of these issues if we constantly expect the problem that exists to fix the problem. Listen, the ideas and the people that got us into this mess won't be the people or the ideas that get us out. So that's what we need to change. Then don't make nobody tell you no foolishness about, oh, you don't understand, you just can't do that. This is why I got a problem with Wayne Pannon, This is why I got a problem with a lot of them in cabinet that just think that they can give me some political mumbo jumbo and tell me that, oh, well, you just don't. I understand clearly that you don't have what it takes. I get that, to make the change that is needed, not wanted, but needed. There's a difference. So don't tell me about, listen, and I can tell on this right now, I don't hear me say this many times. That's why I tell you right now, you see this thing with the deputy governor and the attorney general and all them. Listen, we got to put term limits on them. And they need to be held accountable. I don't care what nobody say. There's so many failing things within our government, and they're directly because of the civil servants. France Mann isn't responsible for them. But let me tell you something. We need some constitutional reform in this country, and we need it now. We need to be able to fire the deputy governor. We need to be able to fire the attorney general. We need to be able to fire everybody. If a chief officer ain't doing your job, you're fired. You got to go. And I don't care. It could be my cousin. It could be my brother. It could be my son. It could be my daughter. I don't care. If you ain't cut out for the job, you ain't cut out for the job. Find something else. But see, we got this complacency of smile and wave. I swear the penguins of Madagascar stole that from us. I'm 100% sure that one of those writers in that movie came here and learned the smile and wave concept from the Cayman Islands people. You soon hear the term American kind and Jamaica kind and all these kind, because you know why? You know where they get it from? Right here. Cayman kind. Cayman foolishness. Ah, boy. But how do we continue to sustain this level of unsustainable environment for, the purpose of, and don't get me wrong, and I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. I believe that you should encourage and and do whatever you can to make sure that your children have the best education possible and affordable to you. I also believe that we need to also work in conjunction with the system that your children will ultimately end up back in, if you want them to come back to participate and be contributors to this society. Because we have seen where it is just a lot of issues. Caymanians are being marginalized. It's just not a fair opportunity landscape. It's not. I don't care how many people want to say, oh, well, if they did this, listen. I can tell you all here now, and if I have to, I can call company names and individual names and partner names of people who've done this. I know people who come here from international markets, worked in institutions here with no international experience other than entry level, and has climbed the corporate ladder because they have the one thing that they say they had that they didn't really have: international experience over the local harvest. I've seen that happen many occasions. It continued to happen. Why? Because they're not got no sheriff in town to police that. They just got people who beat up their gum. And I telling you right now, I'm so sick of seeing them using people who have been in the system for so long that haven't done anything. I hear them talking about certain individuals being on new committees and boards now, and I'm listening to the politicians saying, oh well, we got this person heading up this committee, and listen to me, this person's been around for 80 odd years and he ain't done one thing for this country. Why we got him on a board, heading up a board or a committee to do something? But let me tell you something. They better start to check themselves. I can tell you that, because what I heard on the radio came on this morning was something very eye-opening for me. The man say planning department better straighten up or somebody can get hurt. That's what the man said. So I was like, wait a minute. Who? America Bush? All right, let's see who that is. Agree in some ways, but when we all complain about the cost of living, and you see many people running their car engines and go shopping or visiting someone, still keep them running, make me, what he said, make me feel it's some education mentality issue. All right, let's read that. Let's read this comment. Let's read this comment aloud, because you know me, I always like a challenge. This person, America Bush, obviously not using their real name for obvious reasons. Must be one of the contributors on Anonymous. It says, agree in some ways, but when we all complain about the cost of living, and you see many people running their car engines and go shopping or visiting someone, still keep them running, makes me feel it's some education mentality issues. First of all, let me just lay this out for you, big boss, or whoever you is, America Bush. Listen to me good. Somebody leaving their car running to go shopping or go do anything has absolutely nothing to do with the high cost of living in the Cayman Islands. And when you hear somebody speak about the cost of living in Cayman, that's not complaining. No, that is just coming to the reality, coming to understand what's happening. It's not complaining. You see, that's the problem that we have in this island and in plenty of other places, where people are automatically viewed as something less than what it is they're trying to say. And the problem is that if a person say, I can't afford to buy $7 worth of gas, or I can't afford to buy a $9 gallon of milk, or a $7 loaf of bread, they're not complaining. That's just genuinely expressing that they can't afford it. How is that complaining? Oh, and by the way, and if they pull up to the curb to talk to somebody and leave their car running, I can tell you this. I don't know how that is associated with the cost of living. Now, if you had said none of the above and just simply said, well, people who complain about the cost of gas and keep their car running everywhere they go, maybe want take a stronger look at what they're doing in terms of their behavior. Maybe they can reduce it that way. And how do you know? And how do we determine that the person who complaining about gas is the person who leaving their car running? So I don't particularly understand that. So we must understand that we have to be reasonable about everything that we say and do, and especially the comments. But I don't understand the concept behind that. But anyway, to each his own. And we are, when we encourage all comments here, obviously, but we have our opinion too. But 1 second, let me just. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just responding to that call. This was letting them know. Yeah. So yeah, the cost of living is a ongoing issue. So of course, we're gonna have a conversation about it. But not having a conversation about the high cost of living means that we're complaining, and then associating somebody who parks their car and leave it running with the people who complain. I just think that's an unfair comment in terms of where's your data that proves that? Where's the data? So that's my opinion. But that's just the situation at hand, and we need to understand, that we have to be very careful in some of the comments and stuff that we say. So anyway, I do have to cut the show short, meaning I have to sign off in about 5 minutes. But the fact that we need to continue the open dialogue is critical. We need to understand what and where in the civil service that we're failing, because those are the areas in which we need to work on. When you see a civil servant stays in a job through 5 or 6 different election terms, and we still experiencing the same fundamental problems, then it mightn't be the politician that the problem, it might be them. Just saying. So we need to figure out how to have constitutional change that gives us more autonomy over holding everybody accountable, not just the elected officials. So the deputy governor, the attorney general, all the civil servants need to be held accountable to the highest level to the people of this country. That's how I see it. And the minute that we can structure the Constitution that gives us the ability to hold civil servants, deputy governor, and the attorney general accountable, and we need to put a term limit on this attorney general job. We need to put a term limit on the deputy governor's job. We need to put term limits. We got to make sure that they don't sit there and just constantly, because if we get a bad one, well, we stuck with them until they decide to retire. No. Every single person that works in government, every person should be held accountable on the highest level to the people of this country. I'm sorry. And that's just how I see it. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and obviously, don't forget to like and share, and please tell your friends who don't have Facebook that we got a YouTube channel, word of mouth, that they can watch us streaming live on YouTube. Don't forget to tune in. And today's Wednesday midweek, so stay safe. We'll see you guys on Friday, and hopefully we'll be back in the studio and everything will be good to go. I noticed today we didn't have any interruptions on the internet. Maybe it freezed up a bit. I'm not sure, but it didn't kick us out. Internet ran good. So big shout out to C3 when they came out the other day and looked at it. Looked like they may have fixed the problem. Happy to see that. Legalize a national lottery. And then, what is it? Legalize a national lottery and legalize the green. It insists that we build a casino. Government could easily take 20 acres of East End. I mean, then they'll develop that NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard. And have an auction able to 50 years at least. Yeah, I mean, see, those are some ideas that are floating around, and I thank Jonathan for sharing those because that's what it's all about. We talk about the fundamental issues. We talk about the things that we don't like or we do like, and we share ideas and how we can enhance or how we can change them, or whatever the case is. That's what this sort of platform should always be about: the encouragement of sharing ideas and being able to be brave enough to share them and speak about them. Some people just have them and don't say nothing. So I want to continue to encourage people to get involved, and as we transform this platform into a very well followed and liked platform, those are the sort of things we want to talk about. I just want to hit a quick little plug for my good friend Monty over at Kay's Fine Jewelry out in Georgetown. I was in town a couple of days ago, and I walked in the store. I didn't even know the store was there, and it's a very nice place. But yeah, I encourage you all to go down there and have a look and see. They got some really nice stuff in there. He gave me a coffee mug for visiting, so I got a free coffee mug. All right, so go down to that jewelry store. It's ask for Monty. He's the supervisor manager out there. Great guy. So tune in on Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you guys come on, and we're gonna continue the conversation and dialogue. We'll see what's happening and transpiring throughout the week here. So enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
We got to break Sariba up. Sariba is a cartel.
We have to own our grid because we paid for it. You had it too long. That's number one. We need to control the purchasing of fuel because we pay for it. We should be in charge of buying it. The fuel companies, you better buckle up too. Jackson Point Pipeline have to be reverted back to the ownership of the country. Oh, Mario, you can't tell them how to operate their business. Well, yes, we can. Having this idea that you're going to impose what's best because of what the law tells you can do will cause an uprising in this country that you've never seen before. My children are going to be saddled with the debt of a billionaire so that he can have his name printed on everything we got around here. Because let me tell you something, this is Dart Island.